Again, good evening, welcome. Thank you all for joining us tonight to talk about the upcoming Brentwood Forest Fair Oaks Middlesex I&I Reduction Project. That's project number 12100. And I point that out because if you have questions about this project, the best way to make sure that those get directed to the right person is to reference that project number. That's what we use internally to make sure that we're all on the same page about each project. My name is Bess McCoy. I'm in our Public Affairs Division here at MSD. Also with me tonight is Mark Dedeker, who is the project manager for this project. And he's going to be your main point of contact throughout the project. He and I are going to talk about what to expect during construction here tonight. And then also with us tonight is Saad Amir, who is in public affairs with me. Now you won't see him tonight, but you might interact with him. Saad is helping out, making sure everything works correctly on the back end, but he's also going to be monitoring the question and answer section throughout the presentation. So if you submit a question, he might answer those in the chat box with you. There we go. Before we get started, I just want to kind of give a quick overview what we're going to talk about tonight. First of all, I'm going to quickly talk about the technology we're using, make sure we're all on the same page about how these meetings work. And then I'm also going to give a quick overview about who we are at MSD, what our role is in the community, and where this project fits within that big picture. From there, we'll go ahead and get into those project specifics, which I know is what you all are here to learn about. So we'll talk about what to expect from this project and also why we're doing this project. And then after that, we'll open it up for a question and answer section where we'll be able to answer your questions live here. Now, a couple notes about the platform we're using here, Zoom. You all can probably tell, but you are in listen and view mode. And basically what that means is you can see us, you can hear us, but we can't hear or see you. Now, that being said, we still do want to interact with you tonight, and that's where that question and answer feature comes in. So it looks like all of our attendees tonight are either on a computer or a smartphone, which is great. That's the best way to participate in these meetings. So if you are on a computer or a smartphone, you can find that question and answer feature by either wiggling your mouse or tapping on your screen. And you should see a menu pop up. And one of the items in that menu should say Q&A. And if you open that up, that's where you can type in your questions. Now, you can type those in at any time throughout the meeting, but we're going to wait until the end to address those here live. Now, like I said, Saad is on the line. He's going to be monitoring those questions throughout the meeting. If it's a question that he can easily address, he'll just go ahead and type that answer in for you. But if it's a question that he thinks either would be good for us to address during the live section or something that we need to get a technical expert on, he's going to go ahead and just mark it as something for us to answer live. And we'll get to those at the end of the meeting. Now, there are a few ground rules for those questions, mostly just because we want to be cognizant of everyone's time and make sure that we're being courteous during this meeting. So the first ground rule is that during the live section of the Q&A, we will only be addressing questions related to this project, the Brentwood Forest project. So we understand some of you might have questions about other MSD services, maybe about your bill, or about other things that MSD is doing in the community. Please feel free, go ahead and type those in anyway. But what we'll do is Saad will acknowledge that we've received it, and then we'll make sure that we put you in contact with the best staff person at MSD to get that answered for you. And we'll have someone follow up with you after the meeting. The other ground rule we have is that during the live Q&A section, we won't be answering any questions about specific properties. So if you have a question about how this project is going to specifically affect your property, again, feel free to drop that into the Q&A. But similarly, Saad is going to let you know that we received it, and then also just let you know that we're going to pass that question along to Mark, the project manager, and he or someone on the project team will follow up with you in the next few business days. Make sure that we can get your questions about your property answered but not do that during the live meeting where all of our participants can overhear about your property. So those are the ground rules for the question and answer. The other thing that I do want to point out is that we have a project page on our website for this project. You should have seen that in the notification letter that we sent you, but we'll also have that up on the screen at the end here. And so as we receive questions, we're also going to have an FAQ section on that project page. So we'll take all the questions that we received tonight and add those to the FAQs. And then also if we receive questions throughout the duration of the project, we'll update those FAQs there. So real quick, I just want to talk a little bit about who we are at MSD and what our role is here in the community. MSD, we are a government utility and we provide stormwater and wastewater services to all of St. Louis City and about 90% of St. Louis County. Now, not a lot of people know this, but we are actually the 4th largest sewer system in the United States. That's after New York, LA, and Chicago. The biggest thing that I want to point out here on this slide, though, is that little graphic at the bottom that says 2 utilities in 1. And I say that because we at MSD, we are 2 utilities in 1. We are a wastewater utility, meaning that we help take all of the dirty water from your sinks, from your toilets, your washing machines. We convey it through our sewer system to one of our 7 treatment plants, and then we clean that water before we put it back into the environment. And then we're also a stormwater utility, which means that we own and maintain the public storm sewer system, which helps to convey rainwater to natural drainage ways. Now, while we are 2 utilities in 1, those are actually 2 separate utilities. So we have separate funding sources for each of those, and those funding sources have to be spent on each utility separately. So any money that we collect for wastewater has to be spent on wastewater services. And similarly, any money that we collect for stormwater has to be spent on stormwater services. Now tonight, we're talking about the Brentwood Forest Inflow and Infiltration Project, which certainly sounds like a stormwater project. It deals with stormwater, but it's actually a wastewater project. It's dealing with our wastewater system, and specifically it's designed to help improve our wastewater services and improve our wastewater system. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into this project specifically. At this time, I want to go ahead and introduce Mark Dedeker, who's with me. Mark Dedeker is the project manager, like I mentioned. And like I mentioned, he is going to be your main point of contact throughout this project. So if you have questions, his contact information is here on the slide. Mark, do you want to go ahead and introduce the rest of your project team?
Sure, thank you, Bess. Chuck Lowe is a field inspector. He'll be assigned to this project, and he will be on site working with the contractor each day that the contractor is working. He may not be there for the full day depending on other jobs that Chuck has working. So he'll allocate time between this particular job and maybe another job that might be working in the same area. So he'll bounce back and forth between the 2. Notice his phone number there. That's his cell phone contact. That's my office line, direct line. We both have voicemail available. So please, if you do call and get voicemail, leave a message, leave your name, your property address you're calling about, and a short message with your return phone number would be very helpful.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, you're welcome. Thanks, Bess.
Let's see. So quick overview of the project. In general, the goal of this project is to eliminate points where stormwater gets into our wastewater system. And this is known as inflow. And the reason we're trying to remove these sources, remove that inflow, is because our wastewater system is really, it's designed to handle the water that comes from your home. It is not designed to handle that large influx of water that we get during those heavy rain events. And so what happens when a lot of stormwater gets into the system is that it gets overwhelmed. And by that, I mean that too much water is in it. It gets completely full and that water has nowhere else to go. And so what it does is it either backs up into buildings, what we would often call a basement backup, or it overflows into the environment. And so what we have there is untreated water that's, wastewater, that's dirty water that spills into our creeks and streams. Clearly, those are both things that we want to avoid. So that's why we're disconnecting points where stormwater gets into the wastewater system. Mark, you want to talk about some of the specifics about the project scope?
Sure. We have for us a small area of open cut that we'll be doing. It's on two different streets. Joseph Avenue is one street that has some open cut on this project, and Dorothy is the other street. And that will consist of approximately 1,200 linear feet of sewer pipe. And that will be done what we call an open cut method, track rig in the street, a trench. There will be pipe on site, gravel on site, kind of a staging area, if you will, as that is installed. Our contractor that we have, Fred M. Luth and Sons, is a very experienced contractor with us, and they perform many of these types of jobs throughout the year for MSD. The other part of the project are the 72 private properties. And those properties, there's different things involved that we've identified, and it can be like a driveway drain, some downspouts off your property that maybe tie in underground and go to your lateral, which go to the sewer main, the sanitary sewer main, onto the wastewater treatment plant like Bess described. And that's what we're looking to separate out. So the private properties will have a little bit more detailed work. And again, Luth is an experienced contractor. They've done many of these projects for us, and feel confident going forward that they will provide a good service and do a good job. Generally speaking, once they start on your property, we give them 14 days and try and have everything wrapped up, start to finish, weather permitting. So, if we get sleet and snow, something like that, it's going to push things back a little bit. But once they touch the property to begin the work, we try and have them wrapped up within 14 days. So just keep that in mind. I think Bess,
Thanks,
we
Mark.
can turn it back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that quick overview. Now, again, just to reiterate kind of the benefits of this project, like I mentioned before, by removing this stormwater, we're going to reduce the likelihood of basement backups in your area. We're also going to reduce the number of sewer overflows that we have. Again, that's where that untreated water spills into creeks and streams. Now, one benefit that isn't listed here is that it will also reduce the cost of treating that water. Because right now what we have is a lot of storm water going to our wastewater treatment plant that we have to put through that treatment process. If we can remove that storm water, that's a lot less water for us to be treating, and it's water that really doesn't need to be cleaned. And so that's a savings that we're able to pass along to all of you as well. Now I want to quickly talk about the project timeline here. This is just a map kind of overviewing where this project is taking place. I know it's a little bit confusing, so I want to walk through this really quick. What we're looking at, the purple outline is really just outlining the project area. Now the black outline, those are the properties where we're going to be doing that private inflow reduction. That's, the stormwater disconnection. So all of those properties, we've already talked to you if we're going to be doing work on your property, so you should be aware. And then down towards the bottom, there's that blue box, and then that zoomed in section of that blue box. That's where what Mark talked about, that open cut construction is going to be taking place. That's where we're going to be installing new, larger pipes. And so those blue lines in the map there, those are the couple of stretches where we're going to be digging trenches and installing new pipes there. Now, our timeline for this, we're going to be starting in October and ending in April of 2021. Now, of course, for all of those private properties, that can be a little bit daunting to see that. As Mark mentioned, we won't be on each of those properties for that entire time. Right now, we're looking at, would you say about 2 weeks max on each property? Is that right, Mark?
That's correct.
right? So if we're on your property, it'll be for about 2 weeks at some point in that time. Mark, do you want to talk about kind of what that timeline looks like, what residents can expect, how they'll be notified when construction is coming their way?
Sure. The contractor plans to begin mid to late October is their schedule they have given me. Now, whether that means they're going to start on individual home sites or maybe the open cut in the streets, that's for them to determine. They haven't notified us of that. But you'll receive written notification, and 7 to 10 days before work begins. And then there will be some form of communication within 24 to 48 hours before your actual property would be touched. So hopefully, if there's a car that needs to be moved or some other items that might be in the way, that you would have time to have those removed before the contractor shows up and begins the work.
Thanks, Mark. Now, before we move on, I do just want to give a quick reminder about that Q&A. So if you have questions, feel free to drop those in the Q&A. Again, you can find that by either wiggling your mouse or tapping your screen, and you should see a menu pop up, and one of the items will be Q&A. Again, feel free to drop those questions in at any time. Now, this shouldn't be the first time that you all are hearing about this project. It certainly isn't the first time that we've reached out to this community about it. We did have a previous public meeting back in September of 2019. At that point, we were in what we call the design phase, which means that we had designed this project. We knew pretty much what it was going to look like, but we hadn't yet selected a contractor. At this point, we're coming back because we have a contractor on board. We have a specific timeline for it, and we just want to make sure that we introduce that contractor and give you an idea of what to expect during construction. The other thing is that we've also been working with the municipalities in this area, making sure that we're keeping them informed and working with them on how we schedule this project. So now let's move on to what residents can expect during construction. So as Mark mentioned, we have two different types of construction going on. We have that construction we'll be doing on private properties to disconnect stormwater. And then we also have that construction where we're going to be laying some new pipe. First, let's talk about what to expect from that open cut construction. And just as a reminder, we're looking at this blue box here, which is zoomed in from this area right here, specifically looking at these blue lines. That's where we're going to be laying new pipe. So open cut, basically what that means is that we dig from the surface. We dig some pretty large trenches, pretty deep down in the ground, and then we lay the pipe that way. Mark, do you want to talk about what people should expect? I know you kind of touched on this a little bit, but what they should expect with regards to noise, traffic, access, that type of thing.
Right. All the equipment will have backup beeper noises, so when they're in reverse, you'll hear beeps indicating the vehicle's in reverse. And I know those can be loud and annoying, but overall, it's going to be one piece of equipment, a couple dump trucks, bringing in materials for construction, calling off material that's no longer needed, things of that nature. And that'll be for the open cut portion. We will always have one lane of traffic open, so there won't be anybody boxed in for a period of time. Emergency vehicles will be able to get through and access the other end of the street, if you will. So it won't be really impactful, as they lay pipe. Obviously, they're going to move down the street. You may have a temporary delay of driveway access, maybe 20 to 40 minutes, something like that. But either at the end of the day, we'll have a plate put across there, or it'll be backfilled with gravel so you can get in and out at the end of the workday. We'll try and notify you again the day before previously if there's going to be a driveway interruption, maybe first thing the next morning, so you can plan accordingly or move your vehicle once the contractor arrives so you're not blocked in. And we'll work with you as best as we can in order to avoid issues like that. Pretty much everything else I think we've kind of touched on. Work hours are going to be directed, by the city. Things start at 7 a.m., quit at 4, quit at 4:30, whatever the case. That'll be respected.
Thanks, Mark. Let's go ahead and let's talk about what residents who are having that private inflow reduction work done on their property can expect. Again, this is where we're going to be on private properties, removing sources of stormwater from the wastewater system. And once again, if we are doing work on your property, you've already been notified, so you should know that we're coming. Mark, do you want to talk? I know you touched on this a little bit before, but just on what those properties, what those residents can expect.
Sure. Thanks, Bess. We have, there's 72 properties that we have on this project with signed agreements to do work, this PIR work. Generally speaking, it could range from new clean out cover in the yard, maybe a driveway drain, some downspout separation, even some gutter work on a few properties where we're going to repitch the gutter to go a different way to a different downspout to move the water in a different direction on the lot, things like that. So most of the properties are going to have either clean out work where we'll put a new clean out on the top, maybe 2 or 3 feet of the clean out that's in your yard, and with a new solid plastic cap cover. And then any of them that have driveway work, when it's asphalt or concrete, that'll be cut, that'll be hauled off, that'll be replaced and restored as it was before the project started. And again, I will be available. Chuck Lowe, the field inspector, will be available. If you have issues that you want to talk about, don't hesitate to call, and we will address your specific concerns at that time and try and work to find a solution that fits your property the best.
Excellent. Now, Mark, you did mention that we'll be on properties for up to 2 weeks. Now, does that include not only the construction, but also repairing anything that we've disrupted?
Generally, it does. If we get into some bad weather situations, maybe, where it's real cold and it's can't get sod for a period of time, or if it's too cold and asphalt plants aren't running, we can't get asphalt replaced for a driveway. But with our time frame here, I think we're going to try and have most of that construction. I'm going to try and have a lot of it wrapped up before the heavy part of the winter sets in. So generally speaking, we're going to try and be start to finish 14 days and have everything tied back up so it looks better or as good as when we got there within those 14 days.
So it sounds like we don't anticipate any issues with getting everything done in those 2 weeks, but sometimes weather or seasonal issues with being able to lay asphalt or being able to get sod can extend that, but we don't anticipate too much of that.
That's correct.
All right, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and just in general, are there any other types of restoration that we'll be doing other than laying sod or repairing driveways, just for most properties?
Yeah, there's a couple where the driveways do have retaining walls, or the properties have retaining walls built in. I think there's like 3 or 4 of those homes that have that. So there might be a retaining wall work that happens as well as driveway work, and that should be part of the agreement that we have in place with you. So, obviously that's a little bit more invasive than just a new clean out cap and taking 2 downspouts off of separation. So those will be a little bit more involved, but again, we do have a good contractor for this project, and they've all encountered this before.
And one last question, will this work that we're doing have any interruption to their sewer service?
It should not. We should not have any lateral interruptions for your sanitary line. Occasionally, we might have an electric dog fence or something like that maybe they snag inadvertently, where or maybe an underground water service that gets snagged, or maybe a pop-up sprinkler gets broken. And again, we we have those repaired, or have the company that installed the sprinkler system come out and make the repair, and we take care of that. That's on us. So the service interruption should, but sometimes things do happen.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark. And then I just had this in here again to reference. So when we were talking about those private properties, again, that's those properties we have here outlined in black. And then this is just a little visual to give you an idea of what to expect during construction. Here we show the before, during, and after. And I want to point out, as you can see, during construction, it's a construction project. It's messy. But if you see on the far right there, the after slide, we do restore anything that we disrupted, make sure that we're leaving you with something nice and clean. And that is the end of at least the formal part of our presentation. Now, we did have a few FAQs that we wanted to talk about. First is where will stormwater go after it's disconnected from the wastewater sewer? So once we take that stormwater and disconnect it on those private properties, where's that stormwater going to go? Mark?
You want me to take that one, Beth?
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, the design should be, if we're separating the downspout, and we can do a block right at the bottom of the downspout where it's going to drain on the ground now. So the old line will get capped, get plugged and capped, so we don't have access to that one anymore, and we'll redirect the water on a thrust block, so to speak. And if we need to, based on the lay of the land, we might have to connect new pipe, our pipe, and direct the water maybe to the rear of the property or closer to the street, depending on the scenario. I don't think Brentwood wants downspouts directed all the way out to the curbs and allowed to drain on the streets. So we have to be conscious of that, and we don't want to dump it right on your next door neighbor as well. So we'll work to do our best to make sure we're not creating more of a hazard with ponding water or whatever the case. So we take all that into consideration.
Thanks, Mark. Our next question, and we kind of addressed this for the private I&I, those stormwater disconnections, but maybe as we look at our open cut area where we're going to be laying new pipe, if we want to address it for that, will this work disrupt sewer service for any of those customers in that area?
No, they will still have service throughout. There'll be a new pipe going down the street, so anything that is disconnected will be temporarily disconnected just for a short period of time and be put back in service shortly thereafter once the new pipe is set. So service interruption is going to be very, very minimal, if at all. Excellent.
Now, we often get questions about trees. Mark, will any trees be removed as part of this project?
There may be some sapling trees that wind up being in conflict. Again, we'll work with the homeowners, on smaller trees. If they want to try and transplant them, they're more than more able to do that if they like. If they just want the tree removed, we can do that as well. But as far as big trees that were identified to come out, we don't anticipate any large trees like that being removed.
Awesome. And now, again, another question that we addressed during the presentation, but it doesn't hurt to address it again. For how long can residents expect construction on their private property?
Yeah, we try and keep that to 14 days, start to finish, and hopefully we can adhere to that for all 72 properties that we have agreements with on this project.
Excellent. And then our last FAQ, will construction affect access to any properties?
Yeah, we touched on that as well a little bit. The open cut, as the pipe goes down the street and cuts in front of your driveway apron, the access to your driveway, it'll be temporarily blocked, 20 to 40 minutes most likely. We'll work with each of you. The day before we're going to have a conflict giving you a heads up. If you need to get a car out early or park on the street someplace else, we'll give you the option to do that, so we don't barricade you in and create a problem getting to work or a problem getting to school.
Thanks, Mark. All right. So like I said, that does it for at least the formal part of our presentation. And so we'll go ahead and open it up for that live question and answer. Again, please feel free to use that question and answer feature. You can find that by either wiggling your mouse or tapping on your screen, which should make a menu bar pop up, and then just click on the Q&A button there. We have one question so far. Dwayne asks, will only the very dark lines, not the light blue lines on the map, be where the digging of trenches take place? Let's go ahead and go back to that map really quickly. So the places where trenches are going to be dug, it's going to be that area, that box down at the bottom where we have it zoomed in. And there's 3 lines showing where that trench digging, open cut construction is going to be. One kind of looks like a sideways crooked L-ish. And then there's 2 that are separated by a small section down there at the bottom. But those 3 areas are the only places where we're doing that open cut to lay pipe. Now, Mark, are there going to be any private properties where we'll also be doing open cut?
No, the private properties. Well, let me rephrase that. If we're doing something in a driveway with a driveway drain, that could be a form of open cut, if you will, but not anything extensive like putting new sewer pipe in the street where we're probably 8 to 10 feet deep. Most likely, like a driveway drain is going to be maybe 1 to 3 feet deep at the deepest. And just real quick, Beth, I noticed the Austin Markey, that's the project manager for our contractor.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like he has the same phone number as our field inspector.
Oh, maybe we forgot to update that. Well, we'll make sure we put that on.
Yeah, I have it right here, Beth.
Yeah, do you want to say it?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and give it. It's a 314 area code, 502-0029. So it's 502-0029. That's Austin Markey, project manager with Fred Luth and Sons.
Thanks, Mark. And we'll make sure that we have that correct on the web page as well. That's a good segue just to talk about what we're seeing here on the screen. Just again, this is basically the project team here. Mark Dedeker, the project manager, Chuck Lowe, who's the field inspector, like Mark mentioned. He'll be on site at least part of the day. Every day we're doing construction. And then Austin Markey, who is with the contractor. He's the project manager on their end. So if you have questions, this is your team. This is who you should be reaching out to. One more question we have here from Daniel. He asks, when will roadways be restored to the improved or the normal conditions?
Yeah, that kind of falls to the contractor's schedule. Once they have everything installed from point A to point B, we encourage them to begin the restoration process. So I can't give you a timeline. There's not a number of days like there is on the individual properties, but with the fall season approaching, cooler temperatures, asphalt or concrete streets, are temperature sensitive. We're going to want to try and get everything buttoned up and put back asphalt or concrete shortly thereafter the installation takes place. So I would anticipate everything being back in hopefully by the first week of December.
Thanks, Mark. Now, just to make sure, say a conflict comes up for some reason, our contractor is not able to quickly, repave. Will they at least make the roads there drivable, make it so that we don't have open trenches?
Sure. Yeah, it'll be safe for the motoring public. Again, it'll either be backfilled to the current pavement level or some form of street plate, maybe lining the trench, the top of the trench, so it can be driven over. So yes, they will continue to have access on the street while we're waiting for the restoration to take place.
Excellent. I'm not seeing any more questions, so we'll give it just another minute. Again, if you have questions, feel free to type those in. Now, I'll take this time to let you all know kind of what the next steps look like. One, we are recording this presentation, and so we will upload this onto the project page. It's down there at the bottom. MSD Project Clear, oh, there's another area there. It's projectclear.org / Brentwood Forest. So if you go to that project page, you can reference this presentation there. And then we'll also, like I mentioned earlier, be updating the FAQs there. So as we receive more questions and as we answer them, we'll also update the FAQs there. You can also find all of the contact information on that project page. You can find information about the project map, stuff like that. See, I'm not seeing any more questions. Now, just a reminder, I know that a lot of you probably have questions about how this project will affect your specific property. Again, feel free to reach out to Mark Diedeker, and he will be happy to answer any questions you have about your property, make sure we get all of those resolved. With that being said, we'll go ahead and wrap it up from here. I just want to say thank you to Mark for being a great co-host here with me and for sharing some great information about this project. Thank you to Saad for helping monitor those questions and answers and making sure everything looks good. And thank you to everyone for attending, and we look forward to making some improvements in your neighborhood. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Bess. Have a good evening.